either here or on Zoom. Before we get started with tonight's agenda, I think we should approve last month's minutes. It was February 21st. They've been distributed. And whatever comments were needed were made. And so I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Rosie, we'll start with you.
Yes.
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 I was not here, so.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Minutes are approved. And we'll get right to our first new matter, which is 3 Gray Rock Terrace. Do we have somebody here on that matter?
Yes.
Excellent.
Hi there. Good evening.
Hello.
Can you hear me? We're good.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. Hi, it's James Krapp for Studio Park and for our private residents, so owner and applicant. We're here before you today requesting variance relief for coverage and pre-existing non-conforming setbacks. I don't know if you'd like me to walk through the plans, but I can
Sure.
do that right now.
Be great.
Okay, thanks. So let me just share my screen. Can you see that PDF now?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's loading. It's loading.
No.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Better?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just to familiarize you with this is 3 Gray Rock Terrace. It's a dead-end street in Cedar Ridge, abutting the backside of Field Point. So there, technically, we don't have a, we have a bit of a buffer in between us and Field Point, but they are our neighbors to the north. We are proposing a first floor addition with a potential crawl space, no basement, potentially a monoslab, depending upon what we find with borings. And that would be in this area here. So presently, I'll walk you through the existing. This is the existing structure right here. We have our neighbor to the north whose garage is directly on the setback right now. And we have an existing raised patio that has always been in the setback since we arrived at the property. The rest of the house is plus or minus conforming. We've kind of found that our chimney here, which we are proposing removing, is slightly over the setback. And we actually just received an updated survey as well that this 29-foot that we had here is actually within the 30-foot. So this actually isn't in the setback anymore. So it's a little bit better than we thought. Now, that being said, we're proposing demolishing that existing deck and putting on a smaller deck. It does not creep into the rear setback, but it does still extend over the existing side yard setback. And then the bulk of the addition that we proposed is this just under 700 square foot first floor addition, which is conforming with the existing setbacks. As you can see from the lot itself, we have a lot of existing very large trees. We're doing our best to avoid anything related to them. So we wanted to kind of target the lightest touch area, which is kind of outside of these big orange circles that you can see here. And that's where we're proposing the addition at this time. So ostensibly, most of Gray Rock or most of Cedar Ridge and a lot of the neighboring areas are overbuilt, as we know, which a lot of Irvington is. That being said, we were over on coverage when we started, but we are increasing that. We received our denial from the planning board, but they really had no other comments based upon what the proposition was, minus the fact that we are over on coverage, extremely under on FAR though. But we've provided neighborhood comparison for all of the properties within our taxable area. And essentially, we're looking at approximately 27% over total coverage, which is not uncommon, but is higher for the neighborhood. But we understand that going in. So what we presented today was essentially our initial planning board package. We have not been approved at planning board as of yet. But they did give us the green light to come before you today and hear any questions or comments that you may have. And that's the quick pitch. So I look forward to your questions.
So if I read your tables correctly, you're going to go to 140+% of lot coverage from 120+%, right?
That's correct.
Right. And it's a 27% increase
Yes.
in lot coverage. Yeah, okay.
Well, not 27. Oh, total.
Yeah.
Total from previous, yes. And we were
Yes.
over the day we bought the place. So
Right. Okay.
And can you just, I can't see those numbers. Give us an idea of how that fits in with the neighborhood.
oh, so
And A lot of
it's
the houses.
about
Cedar Ridge
50. I'm going to
Oh.
generalize to some degree, but
Sure.
pre-existing the neighborhood, a lot of the neighborhood, about 50% of the neighbors within range of us are over on coverage, and that's obviously the documented coverage that we can get from property report cards. I would suspect that it's over even more if we dive deeper into everybody's property as we've done with ours. So we were about, like, ranking wise, 6 from the highest in the neighborhood, and this proposed would make us closer to the second highest in the region. So we know that it is more. However, we do believe it's more in keeping with the IF20 zoning nearby and some of the other larger properties as well. So this is why we were seeking.
Show us the, you show us the floor plan as it exists.
Oh,
what you
sure.
would imagine. It's just
So-
a one-story.
That's correct. Yeah, I kind of glossed over the architecture. So I'll show you. So this is the existing structure. Let me show you this. This might be better. So here's the existing home. It's a 5-level split story. It's very chopped up on the interior. Get past this because we already kind of did the overarching zoning stuff. So you can see we kind of progress up multiple levels. You can see here in the side yard, do you see the air conditioning unit here on the right-hand side?
Yes, yeah.
So this area, and you can kind of see with our little stools, we were kind of laying out where the proposed addition would go. And you can see there's the garage that's up against the side setback. This is our children's play set, which will go away. So essentially this kind of open portion of lot is where we're proposing the addition. So if I go to the architectural, you can see here's that big window that was in the front. Here's the chimney. It's not showing in here, but this is where that HVAC unit was. So essentially what we're doing is, besides graphical changes to the house itself and a lot of the architecture that we're still working through, frankly, we're proposing an addition right here. So this right here is the existing. So that's our existing chimney. And this is what we're proposing on the right-hand side. So if you look at the elevations, it's a little more clear. So essentially the box that we're proposing to put onto the house, if I want to generalize, is this little guy. So that is the portion that we're adding on to from the street side. And what you can see from essentially Field Point would be this side. It's all single story. Our first floor is about 3'8" out of the ground, not including the framing structure itself. And so we're proposing continuing that floor. And then this is just crawl space underneath it. As the name Grey Rock Terrace implies, and a lot of the neighborhood implies, we're going to probably encounter rock. We have intention to just work around it. And essentially what we're just trying to do is add a suite and expand our first floor. We've got a couple kids and 2 bathrooms, and they're getting bigger. So that's our main goal, was to get us closer to what our property report card says, which is 3 bathrooms, but we don't have it. So we're trying to get to that now.
Could you tell me again, what's on the first floor? I mean, how many rooms do you have there? What are you looking to do? What are you adding?
Sure. So as I said, it's a split level. So you come up those front steps that we saw. All right. And right now, let me show you the existing, it'll be more telling. So right now, our entire first floor is this kitchen here, our dining space and living space. what we're proposing adding is, let me go here, is we're moving the dining over to here, bigger kitchen, and new guest suite with a bath. That's what we're adding. It's essentially, 1910 by 36 foot, 692 square feet, single story. We did some studies proposing going on top of our existing structure, but we run into the canopy of existing maples that we have in the rear yard. And frankly, it just looks like a behemoth. So since we were over on coverage, we feel that this is actually kind of the lighter touch to the property, even though we're seeking relief on coverage in this case. But
So how many
that's essentially
bedrooms-
what we're adding. How many bedrooms do we have now? We have
Yeah,
three.
present.
Three.
So this is gonna be a guest suite, you say, right?
Well, it will become the primary suite. So on the upper level, we have these two little guys, and then this is what is the primary suite right now with 2 bathrooms. So what we're doing is we're adding 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and renovating and moving the kitchen. So
What is now the kitchen would become what additional just living space?
a dining living space, yeah. So essentially we're just creating new access to the exterior. Presently, if we look here in our, where we're looking to demolish this kind of large, it's frankly in disrepair due to the construction type and a lack of drainage. We're proposing taking this large structure down, which is concrete piers with a bluestone top, replacing this with a permeable structure, a Trex or equal open deck, and we're also lowering it. And what we're trying to do is, presently the previous construction had the deck flush with the back door up here, and essentially we get water into our kitchen. Just because this is not pitched appropriately, and you can see obviously the brick is degrading and it's falling apart. So what we're proposing is we're converting these windows into a door, and then taking a couple steps down and lowering this whole thing and creating a permeable structure. So we're reducing the coverage in this area. However, it's not enough to counteract what we're doing with the addition, but it is a
Gotcha.
benefit in this area because this is, as I said, like there's a bit of a water problem here and other areas, but we're looking to mitigate that as well. So.
Well, I'll give you my first impressions and then I'll ask if anybody else on the panel would like to add theirs. That's an awful lot of coverage you want to add to a lot that's already over coverage. Now, I understand that particularly in Cedar Ridge, those are small-ish lots that are often overbuilt, but this is really going to put you at the very top. And that's a concern for me. I don't know if anybody else shares that concern or disagrees. Either way, please chime in, but
Well, I definitely share your concern.
yeah,
And I do as well.
yeah.
Yeah, I do as well. I don't have any issues with replacing the 2 back patios. And if you need our approval for that, I think I'm fine with that. But the coverage is a big ask. And I used to live on that street. I'm familiar with the
Yeah.
neighborhood, and even the one that's larger than yours is a real, in terms of coverage, is a real anomaly. So this, I mean, in my mind, it would be really,
Yeah, I got the
Number one.
chance to walk around the neighborhood earlier today, and that one is a big anomaly for that neighborhood. I can't say that I wouldn't think this wouldn't change the character of the neighborhood. So I have to tell you, I think what you're hearing from us are some concerns. I know you're not finished with the planning board, so I don't think we would be holding you up to say, why don't you maybe sharpen your pencil a little bit and come back next month with less of an ask on the coverage.
Can I ask a couple of questions regarding
Sure. Yeah.
what we consider allowable? We know that we're over to start with.
Right.
And that we couple things to note. We have no neighbor to the north. We are an awkward lot where previously the garage took out a large chunk of our corner.
Right.
Also, which, you know, we're kind of working against that to begin with, right? So if this were part of our lot, we wouldn't have any coverage issue, but it was, you know, that's neither here nor there, I guess, to some degree. What I would contend is if we were to make a reduction in scale or a potential reduction in coverage, we know that we're over and we know that 50% of the neighborhood is over. Would we be more amenable if we were to just reduce the overall patios or the scale of the property? Because I'd be more than willing, for the sake of the addition, to remove this patio entirely, which is, you know, several hundred square feet. I
Right.
presume that the board we're going to have additional feedback one way or another, and we weren't assuming that today would be our final meeting. But I would like to know, like, what, you know, just gauge feedback a little bit more to understand, like, our goal is to try to get the addition. You know, the patios in the other areas are things that we can adjust and then we have a little bit more leverage with, but, you know, short of not doing the addition, I don't know how to get under on coverage. And I guess what I would say is if we were to make, you know, a several hundred square foot reduction, would that, I would presume that would be seen as a benefit. And if my other question would be, would this be met, like, if we were to make appreciable changes to, you know, other smaller areas or remove other walls or hardscape, would that be met with more positive means? Because there's just a lot of existing hardscape here that, you know, frankly wasn't of our making, and that we could reduce. Do we know, like, I don't know that there's necessarily a magic number or something that you want to see.
Right.
Because, you know, like I said, everyone's over to begin with. So.
Right.
Can I ask you did you just purchase the home recently?
8 years ago, 8 plus. Okay. So we've been there since 2014. Yeah, more than 8 years. Geez.
Look, any trade back on, you know, any give back on coverage is going to be a good thing. I'm just not sure what that magic number is going to be. I
don't think we can give guidance on
Right, yeah.
We're
I mean,
not
all I can give you is
the number.
Right. All I can give you is the general guidance that, you know, any give back is appreciated. If there is hardscape that you can get.
I would get rid of all the hardscape.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
You know, but my opinion is that, you know, it's not a one for one remove.
No, but.
You know, a piece of sidewalk and you get, you know, a square, you know, cubic foot of the house.
No, understood. But I mean, we are talking about a region where things are over and other things are comparable, already over. The density of Field Point, which is technically our next door neighbor to the north, is equivalent. So it's not totally out of keeping. So.
But we're not here to bless things that maybe might have been done or pre-existing before code or things of that sort. I mean, that to me doesn't justify it, quite frankly, but.
Yeah, and I'll also just give you my opinion that we're comparing you to Cedar Ridge. I just, having been up there, I would not compare this to Field Point. I mean, it's a unique, those are two unique neighborhoods, in my opinion. And that's where we would be comparing you to. You know, I understand this would be a major redesign, but you did say you were under on FAR. That's something you could consider.
To be completely honest, it also involves to do something to the main mass of the structure means taking us down to the foundation in the existing structure. As most of the things in Cedar Ridge is an existing monoslab with CMU block on top of it. Going over top of our living room or another area to stay to stay under an FAR but impact coverage it's like a non-starter. Frankly, it's way too costly, and frankly I think it's less impact than it is to the impact of coverage architecturally and to the neighborhood itself. From our opinion, that's obviously for everyone to gauge, but you know, I think we can make some reductions to reduce that number. I just also know, like, you know, going over top of the structure means leaving the structure, obtaining another property. This we believe is the lightest impact, although it requires relief one way or another. So,
Okay, well, I'm gonna suggest we adjourn this to next month. And talk to the planning board, see what their feedback is. It may end up resulting in some changes to the plans anyway. And just my strong recommendation, I guess, again, Charlie's absolutely right. We can't tell you there's a number, so, you have to propose
course.
something to us and we have to say yes or no. My strong recommendation would be to get rid of as much coverage as you can and to think about how much of an addition you need, whether there's anything you could lose on that addition to bring that number down, because this is a big number, and I think it's going to be a problem for a lot of people on the board. So that's just my feedback, and I hope
Understood.
we'll see you back here next month and see some
Yeah,
changes.
no, we will certainly make some edits to bring that within better reason, and we look forward to comments in the future.
Okay, thanks very much. We'll
Appreciate
see
it.
you next month.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. Okay, so the next, and by the way, hi, Judge. Thank you for coming. Sorry about that.
Excuse me.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, sir.
No, what's that? Thank you. And our next matter is 1 Shady Lane. So do we have somebody? Yep, we do. Great. Terrific.
Hello, John Malone at First Malone Architecture.
Hello,
Representing-
John.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So this first project, I'll share screen if that's okay. The first project is something that was in front of the board, I think almost 8 years ago. I saw pictures of myself when it was first designed and I had black hair instead of gray hair. So I know it's long. So it's basically a similar project that was from the board before. The issue, it's for the reconstruction of a historic building or an older building. It's not considered historic, but that the roof has collapsed on, and we're sort of putting it back to something similar to what was there. The issue is it's an odd lot at the end of Shady Lane, and there's a paper road that continues along the driveway here. So in actuality, this area is a driveway that goes to one additional house, and then this turnaround goes to the Shady Lane house. This is the existing structure that we're going to replace in the same location. The issue is setback, and I think position. So we've been, in the last time we presented this to this board and to the planning board, this was considered the front yard. And that was considered front yard all the way to this point, even though the paper road stops here. We just considered this whole line front yard. So then in terms of what we're proposing to do, you'll see, again, this is in the same footprint as the existing building, but it goes into the building footprint, extends into the front yard by whatever percentage that is, 10 feet. And again, so this line here is a 35-foot setback from this point, which is, not really road, but that's the only way to really draw it. Sometimes with complicated lots, there's not really any other way to sort of understand it in that way, because you have discontinuous lines. And then the other thing we're asking for, again, if this is the front yard, then the accessory building is forward of the main building. Right, so this building actually fronts this way towards the Shady Lane, towards the driveway and the turnaround. This is its side elevation, but it's still in the front yard. So those are the two variances that we're looking for. Just quickly to show you what the building is. This is the the existing building in its current condition. There was a gable roof here that collapsed, and then there's a temporary roof that was put on top of it. That's why the chimney is so odd looking like that. And then what we're proposing to put back is something similar to what was there. Same footprint.
What was the original structure, John? It looks like a greenhouse from
There's a greenhouse attachment to the back. It might have been agricultural. There's a deep basement on it. It might have been like a combination root cellar. The greenhouse attachment on the back has some large and burning parts that look like they were cannibalized from like a fancier property. But it was probably an agricultural building in some sense for like a garden house or something.
It looked like a root cellar to me when I looked at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's left of it, because there is like half of the interior space is lower, so that was probably root cellar, and then they probably had the potting area and like a shed area, stuff like that. This is
What would you
Right, okay.
turning it into?
It's an office. It's an office for one member of the couple. Who does magazine and graphic stuff. So the layout actually is it's a studio office and then a storage area in powder room.
Excellent. Okay. Any other questions? From anybody? Yeah, I remember this from 8 years ago. And it seems to me that really the two issues that you need a variance for are sort of a side effect of sort of the oddness of the shape of the property and what's been deemed a front yard or a backyard. And it's just a unique piece of property, but I don't think either of these variances are a very big ask. So I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Already seconded. Judd, we'll start with you.
Yes, approve.
Yes,
I'll say yes, and just to note, it's such a unique parcel of property, and the location of the older buildings, that this really was designed for a zoning board.
Yes.
application.
Yeah, right.
I say yes.
I agree, yes.
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 Yes,
All righty. You are approved, and I will send a letter out by the end of the week.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And our last case of the evening is 9 Meadowbrook Road.
And that is me as well.
And that's you as well. All righty.
So this project is for a replacement of an existing house on Meadowbrook.
Mhm.
So this is the house, you guys are aware of it. So
Yep.
1940s, a one-story ranch that extends into the backyard. So the variances that we're here for, everything in the proposed structure is does not require a variance. What we're asking for is along the side here. I'll show you in plan also. But along the side, there's a window here, window well on the east facing side. And it looks like it's all overgrown here. But in our survey, there's a window well that's underneath that. And that extends into the aqueduct buffer. The aqueduct buffer is typically 30 feet, but in the case of a new building or in the case of a tear down, which is this case, it increases from 50 feet. So the aqueduct buffer typically is where this row of hedges is here. And then the 50-foot aqueduct buffer is here. So again, in terms of the new project, this is what we're asking for. You see these window wells. One of them extends into the aqueduct buffer. So the planning board asked us, because that's considered an encroachment, even the demolition of that is considered a change in the aqueduct buffer. They're asking us to get a variance for the demolition, basically the removal of these two window wells along with the removal of the house. And then the other thing they were asking for is there is some grading in our proposed site plan. So, the dark solid lines here show changes in the grade. So you'll see that there's a slight change in the grade here. This is the existing line, and then this is the proposed line. And here there's a slight change in grade here. This is the existing line going around, and the grade is coming down there. So there's some soil being removed there in the buffer. Again, this hedge, and there's another line of trees along the aqueduct that there's no effect on it. I don't think.
So you're not building anything in the buffer. You're just doing grading and removal.
Yes, That's all it is.
That's what I want. Okay, okay. All righty, any questions for John?
Yeah, I have.
Go for it. Yeah, please.
So the new structure is not going to be within the buffer, the 50-foot, correct?
Correct.
And you're only here because of the two window wells, and as you said, it's a change, so even if it's a removal, you got to come here to do that, correct? Right, 2 for 2, we're doing okay. So the grading it, so it seems to me it's like an architectural design, landscape architecture. Do you need to do that? You can't work around that. You can't leave the buffer alone. It is so important that you need to remove soil from and disturb the aqueduct buffer.
So again, the grading here, if you could take a look at it, it really has just, it's just to get surface water to move around the house. It's very slight change in grading. So the land is 141 here, and it's going to remain 141. So it's basically this little area between the house that is 141 is going to go down to 140 and a half as it goes around. There's not really much. Yeah,
That's 6 inches, you said?
yeah, it's like
So,
a 6 inch.
Have a side view. I mean, it's a little difficult to see the.
Yeah, let me show you. I did bring that up. But hold on one second. So this is a the view of the structure from the side. You see it's buffered by existing privet hedge here, and then there's another hedge close to the house, and then there's aqueduct buffer stuff that's related to a driveway. You see as you go down the street further, you know this is the house here, or if you can see it. So the
Yeah.
change would be in grade would be along this line here. I don't think there's any. Like that. Again, you wouldn't be able to see any change to that.
So again, I don't understand why it is so important to reduce it by 6 inches. Why couldn't you just leave it?
It's a drainage issue. So we're in effect, in order to leave that area of the property at the same elevation, you have to add these small swales so that the water that falls in that area runs around the house and doesn't put pressure on the basement. That's all it is.
Do you have an engineering report that talks about this at all?
It's not a report, but that design and grading was engineered by our civil engineer, and it was reviewed by Doug Hahn at Hahn Engineers, which is the village engineer, and they didn't have any question about it. I mean, I think it's a relatively standard practice, and it's really the design of the house doesn't grade or add a retaining wall or any other method to try to keep water away the house. It's just really something that could be changed. This is again not really even an excavation level change. This is a very slight change. And again, it's not.
It's a change that requires a variance nonetheless. So somebody thought it important enough that you have to come here. Do you have copies of the engineering documents that show what you're doing?
Yeah.
Other than the photographs and things of the sort?
So the civil drawings should be in there. All right. If you give me a second, I'll pull up the civil set. I don't think it's in the thing I have right now. Hold on a second.
Well, while John is looking, I have a question for my colleagues.
Yeah.
If anyone knows, do we have any concern about just the placement of equipment for an extended period of time in the aqueduct buffer, or is that something that we need to consider at all, the construction work?
Doesn't seem like that's within our purview. I mean, it seems like it could be a concern, but not necessarily our concern.
Right.
It's not permanent, right? It's just the
Yeah.
temporary
You're
construction.
talking about if there's bulldozers and.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering, given how sensitive that area is around the aqueduct.
And there, by definition,
you
it
know.
has to be some equipment if you're building a house or demolishing a house.
Yeah, I mean, you would think so.
I mean, there was just a house built there, right? I mean, this house is behind a driveway that's between the there's a
Right.
driveway between the aqueduct and this property, which was
Right.
just put there 2 years ago,
Right.
3 years ago.
Yeah,
Right.
and my question isn't necessarily addressing this situation, but just in general. I mean, it could impact this situation too. I don't know if there were special restrictions on the house that was recently built, that they had to keep the equipment 50 feet away or 30 feet away or something like that. But I don't know if it's within, it sounds like it's not within our purview.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, and the
Thanks,
house
that
on
would
the
be
other
more
side also had a major renovation last summer. They had bulldozers and earth movers over
Right,
there.
yeah.
Yeah,
The house that you're talking about that has the dogleg drive, I mean, that entire area that was between that was a new house, and the
Right.
entire driveway is in the area between the aqueduct and the buffer. So that, I'm not sure if there was a variance associated with the driveway, but that would have included a lot of disturbance, right? The driveway is right here.
Right.
In the buffer, the driveway to the adjacent house, goes between the line of the aqueduct and the property line of this house. So that entire driveway, including all that
yes.
planting, was in the buffer.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
So this is the civil drawings that show the swale assembly. So you see, like, if you look at the entire product, with the dark lines show how the water is being directed around this side. And
Okay.
this is, the grades changing directly. Everything about the site is staying approximately the same, as it meets the aqueduct side.
So that driveway is within the buffer?
yeah.
Yeah, the
That
whole
driveway-
driveway, all the planting, the retaining wall, the grading associated with that driveway was entirely within the 30-foot buffer. We're outside.
Well, obviously I would be disingenuous. If I was picking on your little 6-inch removal with the driveway there. But I will tell you, if that driveway wasn't there, I would not approve that variance.
Right. So I'm surprised that the 50-foot setback obtains prior to the demolition. Like, the way I read the statute, it was after.
Right,
So.
right, that's interesting,
Right.
yeah.
Maybe the first speck of demolition and then it kicks in.
I
I don't know.
so I went and I read it, and
Right.
I assumed that it was after the house had been knocked down that the 50-foot setback obtained, right?
Right.
Not prior,
Not prior.
right? So if they do nothing, he's in a 30-foot setback. Right, but as soon as there's a plan, he's in the 50, that
Right,
doesn't
yeah.
seem right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah, yeah. I hear what you're saying.
right.
Take out the windows before you get the approval.
Right.
I think the intent, right, is, I don't know, this is the first time we've been asked to do something for some temporary work, basically, is what you're saying, right? The temporary part of the West for variance.
Any other questions for John or? No. All right, well, I'm gonna make a motion to approve, as Artie says, next to that long driveway, the 6 inches of grading doesn't seem like such a big ask, and obviously the window wells are not a big ask at all. So I will make a motion to approve if I have a second.
Second,
Okay, John, we'll start with you.
I share the concerns of the night protector of the aqueduct, Arnie. But for the driveway, I would be very concerned, but I vote yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
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 All righty, so you will get 2 letters this week.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yep, we're adjourned.
Nice.